We're going filter free at 7 o'clock. We're talking about parenting in the pandemic with the watch with any questions, any concerns. And here she is. Hi, Helen. How are you? Let's do a little bit of camera readjustment. Look, I love that we're both wearing colour. So thank you so much for your time tonight. I know you are hugely busy, and I really do appreciate your time, as ever. I
So
always
do I.
do. I just wish I was on your sofa.
My goodness, I miss talking to people on my sofa. I really do.
No, your sofa's like my happy place. So, but this is, you know, we're lucky to live in a time where we can actually converse from my sofa and you in your chair as well. Now, I need to do an introduction to you, so just spare your blushes, if that's okay. I have actually got a list of your many accolades and your huge amount of experience, but I'm gonna put it away, to be honest, because you are a therapist that's really meant a lot to me over the years, and you've got decades of experience of counselling, of mindfulness, and I know you mean an awful lot to an awful lot of people, which is why you have won so many awards, like the Women Awards and Stylist Awards and Influential People Awards and all of that. But I think it all comes back to the humanity of it all, to do with the connection, and that's why I'm really happy to have you with me today. So we're having a bit of a time for reflection, a bit of a time for checking in, a bit of a mental health check-in. I had a mental health check-in yesterday morning with the guys from Sigma, and I haven't actually had that in quite some time, the chance for someone to ask me questions about, you know, when someone says, how are you? And you go, yeah, I'm fine. They go, no, how are you? And then you feel yourself about to cry. It was one of those. And I feel like at the minute, you know, we're all on such adrenaline and busyness and let's go. And it was World Gratitude Day earlier this week, and we're taking a bit of time tonight just to have a bit of reflection and time with you to reflect on what parenting has been like during the pandemic. And I think, in a word, it's been really tough. Really tough. So you're here this evening to answer my questions, and I've had lots of questions come in on Instagram earlier today anonymously, but anyone can pop a question in, say hi on the live tonight. But I just wanted to get a bit of a sense really from what you're hearing from your clients. Like, what are some of the common themes that have been emerging from parents over the last few months?
So I was having a conversation with someone earlier today who said exactly that in the beginning, people were just full of fear. So it go back to about March time, very fearful about what was happening. So they were frightened. Parents are automatically frightened for their children. Then it changed really from being extremely fearful into anxiety, just a lot of anxiety. So the fear fueling the anxiety and fear holding hands. And then there came a sort of a numb time where people just put their heads down and got on with it and tried. And then came the kind of back to sort of working kind of, which was really difficult for so many of the parents. So things changed again. And I think, where are we now? What I find interesting when you look at where are we now is there's a kind of a malaise about where are we now. And we could call it acceptance, maybe. For some people it is. But my overall sense is it's been so polarized. I've discovered I'm either talking with parents who are still fear-filled and anxious, or parents who find as if they've been on this great discovery of themselves and they've opened up to things that they never knew existed, both within themselves and their relationships, which of course is reflected in their parenting. So I feel the polarization of is, Helen, I need to see you because it's so amazing, I want to talk about it. Or Helen, I need to see you because I can't cope. So how's that?
And I think that's really interesting, actually, in terms of what people are sharing and what we can't help but do, especially now in terms of times of social media, is that comparison of, yes, we're having this shared experience of a pandemic and a threat that is in some ways tangible, but in some ways completely abstract. and we are all having a completely different interpretation, a completely different experience of it. And we can't help but compare to, well, she's having a really tough time because, you know, her husband lost his job, or she's lost her job and they're having to move and they don't want to move. Or, my goodness, that, you know, her mother's not very well and I'm okay. But we can't help but compare and in some ways judge as well. And that's something that I've been really conscious of. And I know I've been doing it and I'm trying not to. The judging how people are navigating this new normal, whether that's going out and about or staying at home. You know, I've got friends, as you say, completely polarized. I've got friends who haven't left the house and are deciding to, you know, homeschool their children since March. And I've got friends who have gone, do you know what, we're going to go to the UK, we're going to carry on as normal. And I think it's really important to understand that there is no right or wrong way to navigate this. And it's natural to want to spend time with people that are doing something the same or have a shared mindset, because that in some ways validates our own feelings about it. But that judgment is, I think, feels very real, and those comparisons in terms of productivity
they feel as though they're twice as productive, much better parents, that they've been able to really listen to themselves in ways they never had before. They've had more reading time. But if I ask them what's really informing that, they'll tell me that their relationships are happier, that they feel as though they've had more space to enjoy each other as partners. Therefore, their parenting is reflecting their actual relationship. So therefore, the children, yes, it's interesting. And other people are saying the exact opposite. I can't bear to live with them any longer. My wife is driving me bananas. We've planned to get divorced during this period of time. Yet if you dig deeper, I think we discover that the roots of both of those polarizations were already present. So in many ways,
yeah, this is just in some way been something of a catalyst for either of those outcomes. I think, you know, in some ways I have got definite Pollyanna tendencies, and when I think I am quite a positive, like, it's been, don't get me wrong, I really hated distance learning. I genuinely hated it. And when Phoebe had to have 2 extra days at home, I had to get that iPad out and say, Mummy's going to be teacher. And she was like, no, I don't want to do it. And I was like, I don't want to do it either. It was really, really hard. But the Pollyanna in me comes out and says, I had an understanding of what she was good at, what her strengths were. You know, I knew what was going on at school. And even in a couple of weeks, I kind of have lost that sense of connection to her and her education, her strengths, her weaknesses, her confidences. So the Pollyanna in me is like, we've had family meal times together. I understood more about her education, and, you know,
isn't it interesting?
I'll do anything for a night in, to be honest. Like, I'm quite delighted
that the people have gone berserk about the most. It's homeschooling. It's been really, really tough on the parents. Sometimes I think it's been tough on the parents.
I think a big part of that is because we just didn't want to do it. You know, the best analogy I found was, you know, teaching your children is like doing a marathon that you haven't trained for and that you don't want to do. and that was my experience. I've always said there've been 2 jobs that I would never want to do. One would be a teacher and one would be a nurse, because I don't have the patience. I would find myself going, we talked about this yesterday. Why don't you, you know, it just did not bring out the best in me. It did not bring out the best in our relationship.
1,000 million years ago, it feels like now. I remember telling the teacher, you teach them and I'll parent them. So right now I'm parenting them. So I choose there's no homework today because we're having mother-parent time. Other days, if you've got a whole pile, you educate them. I'm not the educator. And so we've had to discover educating. It's been really hard, hasn't it? Putting on that.
It has, but in some ways, I've really felt the value in.
Oh yeah.
Like those teachers. My God, give them a pay rise, please. And even friends I have who are teachers have said, well, I can't teach my children the way that teachers do because they don't listen to me in the same way. So that's been quite an eye-opener as well. So let's just hope that the schools stay open, because I can't get that iPad out again. I just can't do it. Helen, we've got loads of questions to get through, and I think that really speaks to the point. And as I said, I was inviting anonymous messages earlier today, but anyone can pop a question, and if you've got any concerns about parenting during the pandemic, any kind of pain points, anything you need some help with, please just pop a question in. One thing I'll be completely honest with, something I've been really struggling with over the last couple of weeks before we get to the messages is the uncertainty. And I think as parents, we're so used to having the answers, not all the answers, most of the answers for our children, of saying, you know, what time does something start and finish, and who's this, and what's that relationship, and da 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 da. And when it comes to parenting in a pandemic, we don't have the answers. We don't know when this virus is going to end, and that's quite strange, I think, as a parent, to not have the answers that our children are asking for. Is that something that's come up with clients as well?
Is that I'm a mindfulness teacher, and what I'm aware of is that we've always thought we had the answers. We believed we knew what certainly was going to happen next. The natural fact, we always live in uncertainty, and it brings us back to what's happening right now. And I think more than anything, that's a thing that parents have learned, and children teach us that. They're much more able to stay present in the moment often than we are. Before we condition them out of it, we're actually teaching them. I know that you're concerned about what might happen in the future, but right now, what's going on, what's happening here now, what's going on right now, let's stay here. We know what happened yesterday. Instead of focusing on the uncertainty of tomorrow, there's the certainty of what's appeared right now. And that's been a fabulous teaching point for many parents. Learning that time actually expands and you can sit in the present.
I think you're right. Mindfulness has never felt kind of more pertinent. You know, it just goes to show we've had all these people embracing things like baking and gardening and puzzles and people, myself included, kind of really embracing what I think of as being that state of flow where, you know, time just slips by. And I know you do a lot around meditation and mindfulness as well, but in some ways that's what people have been searching for, of giving their brains a bit of a break. But I think of that being quite early on. That's like March, April time. And now we're in September, nearly October, and we're all just knackered. You know, we're all just thinking, when is this going to end? What is going to be my next
the best coping mechanism? The best coping mechanism,
I think everyone's feeling a little bit hopeless.
Every time you ask, when is it going to end? You're actually looking for a fix or a solution. And instead, just thinking, we are here now. And the ending could be something completely different than that which we'd imagine. But if we could relax into what is happening right now, and I tell you, many people have. That's been my experience of talking with people. I'm safer in my environment. I'm aware of what's going on around me, and I don't really need to project ahead anymore. It doesn't make me feel safe. It's okay to be here.
And also, being a bit grateful in the moment has really helped me. And that's not about comparisons. It's not to say, oh my goodness, I'm so grateful that, you know, I haven't lost my job or whatever, but it's more to do with everybody's healthy, and I'm not singling out the UK. At least I'm not in the UK. You know, to have those moments of, we're coming into beautiful weather. You know, we can be outside more. You know, and actually we are really, really lucky. Right, I'm going to go to the messages. So, as I said, all anonymous. One person asking, how can I stay away from perfectionism and encourage the kids to get involved in schoolwork and to learn?
Isn't it?
Perfectionism is typical under any circumstances.
The mother's learned response to things. So it won't be the children's yet. It'll be the mother's learned response. And you know, that thinks about enoughness when you think about it. We have to learn that this is enough, that you've done enough, and enough is enough. We don't have to have it better than enough and completed. So perfectionism, when you're encouraging your kids to do schoolwork, comes from the mum. It's not the child's aim. It's always taught, and it's usually a defense mechanism that was put in place by a person quite young when they wanted to be loved, and learned instead, if I'm not lovable for who I am, then I'll jolly well become good at something and perfect at something, so I will get accolades of approval. But of course, what happens when the adult discovers it's not the approval they wanted, it actually was unconditional love. So to give the children what it was you know you needed, love them, how they are, what they're doing, accept what's happening now, be more present in the moment, allow things as they are, and practice enoughness. That's enough. That was good. Enough.
I think that's a wonderful motto. I think for me, done is better than perfect in many areas of my life when it comes to ticking off that to-do list. We've got more questions coming in, but I'm going to come through to some of these that I think will really resonate. And as I said, we had lots. So we've chosen some that I feel like will be pertinent to as many people as possible. One mum saying, I feel I'm home all day, but I feel like I'm not there for my child because I'm working from home. And that feeling of being torn and compromised and, as you say, not enough in either of those scenarios is incredibly,
the working from home thing is interesting,
difficult.
isn't it? Because one presumes a working mum would be working away. You know this. So when you're not there, you're loving your children still. Yeah, but you don't have to do it. So when you're at
out
home,
of sight, out of
the
mind.
way you go about this is to boundary off. I am now working. And you help the children understand that. The older they get, the more capable they are of understanding. We're working now, we're not working now. So the antidote to that is when you are able to be fully present, bury the phone and be fully present. Give the child the wholeness of you. That's actually plenty enoughness, so that you fill up what you can with them, and then be consistent. Make sure that when you say I'm going to be available at 4, you're available at 4, and that you're available. My key words for that is warm and available, which actually means present.
Yeah, I'm listening keenly. Because I do this, you know, I will sit in the car outside and be like, right, I'm just going to bang through a few emails so when I can get in, I can put my phone away. But this damn thing gives me notifications as well, and you'd be very proud of me, actually.
Done.
I've started charging my phone in the living room. I bought a clock radio yesterday. Clock radio, who knew that they were still available? And I'm trying to compartmentalize things. I really empathize with this message, saying, any advice on how to cope when you have a different outlook to your husband? He wants to socialize and get out, but I don't feel safe and want to protect my family. A very
another polarized,
a very tricky one, to be honest, when you've got people and within a marriage as well, because how do you do that? How do you have a family life and a kind of a teamwork if you're not on the same page in terms of what you interpret as dangerous, or what your desires are, what your needs are as extroverts, introverts?
Won't be anything new, though,
and socializing.
Because this will have been obvious and around before. It's just that the lockdown and the change in socialization makes it more obvious. But interestingly enough, when I hear people ask me, that's a really common thing couples ask me to talk about, I would do everything I can to stay away from the word compromise. Because somehow or other, when someone compromises, you know that there's a piece of giving up that's happening. So rather than compromise, it's actual open, connected awareness. Talk to me about what you're needing. The compromise for one couple, I know, was that he got his way and she got nothing. That's not a compromise. So really open, conscious connectedness is, I can see that you need to go and I really, really don't. I'm willing for you to go on your own. Can you socialize without me? When that happens enough times and I'm beginning to feel safer, will you trust that I can come with you? But could we socialize together more? So one couple I spoke with recently learned how to be together without a screen, without the television. They cooked. They cooked together. They went back to the old-fashioned board games. They started playing cards together. They learned a new skill together. You understand what they did something together. And so they had a date at home. And Helen, you know about that. At home.
Even at home. I do. I'm dragging Nick Farmer, who's working over here, to to do some puzzles from time to time. We did try and play Monopoly the other night, but I stropped off. But it's that's really interesting to hear that there are some couples who are really like thriving and coming together around this, because I've got to say, anecdotally, I'm hearing far more commonly the opposite, that this time together has really been a mirror up to differences across the board, really. And it's incredibly sad. It's a huge pressure to put a relationship under, you know.
Completely reflective
for anyone who is struggling.
Right now. I don't think I've ever been busier, and I've never seen so many couples on the trot, one after the other, back to back to back to back to back all day, asking about.
Can I ask, for anyone who's watching, and they will probably not want to comment, but when do you recognise and recommend that a couple needs to come and see someone like you for mediation or counselling, or separately or together? When do you feel like that's needed?
Before they need to. Before they need to. I think it's like having a warrant of fitness.
Even when times are good.
I have to take my car in to get it serviced, and I haven't driven it more than 6 times in the last 6 months, but it still needs to go and have a service. I love it when couples come and say, we're just here for a check-in. We want to talk about the relationship that we're having. It's okay as it is. Let's make it better. Let's talk about aspects of it, communication, educate ourselves, understand our personality types that are different, learn something new together before you need it, so that you don't need it. It's like going for a checkup at the doctor before you're sick, so your health stays well. I love that.
I think that's amazing. I don't know many couples that would be that emotionally open, and I say that as a Brit. I can't see many British men being like, let's go and have a quick relationship MOT, but really, Nick Farmer.
How often people come and say how much they've enjoyed learning about themselves. Because can you imagine if you come because something isn't working, all we're doing is crisis control. And you can't do any work when you're doing crisis control. It's true. Hello, Nick Farmer. How are you?
Look who's here.
Very nice to see you.
Hey, Helen, how are you?
It really is.
Very well, thanks.
Yeah, we're talking about warrant of fitness for couples here.
Good to see you.
We need to go and see before we have problems.
Talking about what?
Emotional
fitness couples. Interesting. That's that patronising
a question here saying, what if the husband is not emotionally open to go and talk? And I think Nick's saying that's his question, which is not true, because Nick came to see you before I came to see you, going back more than a decade. But I think that a lot of men will be distrustful of marriage counselling or of admitting that they need help, either that's as an individual or as a couple. So how would a woman
this question
get a husband to go?
When a woman comes and says to me, my husband's not open to coming, then I can help her look at the kinds of ways that she relates to him emotionally. We go back to warm and available. You know, that soothe the child, warm and available to a husband, learning to speak in ways that actually encourage him to come. But I'm often fascinated that I would say more than 50% of my clients are men. They like coming to talk. And it's often the man who says, I have no idea how to go about this. I've never done it before. I'm from a culture that never reaches out to talk. But somehow or other, I feel like I can trust you because you're a female and because you're old. And that must equal some kind of wisdom and a holding place. Where men have actually felt that it's a failure to speak out to others, they often recognize that when a wife changes, her ability to relate to herself and softens, he's encouraged by that and wants a bit of it as well. So that we go back to mindfulness.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm literally reading right here Caitlin Moran's book, her new one called More Than Woman, and she is, you know, very very feminist and very open and team boobs, as she calls it. And what she's talking about in this most recent book is someone put to her on Twitter, what, or I think it was her brother said, what about the men? And she was like, well, what about the men? And then she put on Twitter, we're talking a lot about, women and goals and, young women achieving so much and, things for the first time. And men have very much been neglected over the last few years through not feeling like they can be emotionally available or vulnerable, or not having an outlook, not having a group of men that they can just go out for dinner with for a few hours and talk about their feelings rather, instead of having some ridiculous chat about fantasy football. And that's really sad. I'm always a big advocate for anybody to go and speak to someone who has not got any agenda or bias, because we can have amazing friendships and relationships, but someone will always have a viewpoint on your life.
In my business, because we teach mindfulness, is rather than coming to any kind of therapeutic session, come to learn mindfulness. Last night in the class, I counted exactly half men and half women. It's often, sometimes there are more men than women, because sometimes the men discover that if they address their thinking self, which is what a lot of mindfulness is about, and they even out to understanding their emotional selves with willingness. But I'm often aware that the women, as this person says on this case, we do the physical heavy lifting, because often the men are more frightened of emotional tension. Often it's men who actually have a much greater fear around rejection, confidence issues, and a fear of difficult, uncomfortable, and unpleasant emotions. So they shy away. And when women can help them to feel softer around that, then I find their willingness to come. And they come.
That's amazing. I'm really pleased that you're seeing that in your sessions. I really am, like for the good of these men and for the good of society in general. I think it's really, really encouraging. I wanted to get to a couple of these messages. I'm going to kind of couple up a few of them. One saying, I feel like I'm on the bottom of my priority list, and the other one saying, how can I focus on my own goals? Which I feel like that's kind of goes hand in hand. And I do feel like so often as parents, we are on that treadmill of like school run, work, family, bang, bang, bang. And we don't often take the time to reflect and say, actually, where am I in all of this? So what advice would you give to anyone who's struggling to kind of recognize what they want to be achieving and, where they are in their own plan, if they've even got one?
And I've often thought, if you were to ask me what is the key word that helps my life work, I would say it's self-discipline. I have a disciplined practice. It's interesting. I have this really disciplined way of living. Before I'm hardly awake, I've got my gym gear on and I'm lacing up my running shoes, and I absolutely hate it every morning, and I know I must, and I'm down and outside ploughing the streets thinking 50 footsteps and I'm so glad I'm doing this, and I'm so glad I'm disciplined. And I walk until I've done whatever kilometers I've chosen for the day, and I get back, and the minute I get back, I swig a bottle of water, and then I sit on my meditation stool and I meet myself. And that is my practice. As much walking as I can fit in, an hour of meditation every morning. I connect with myself. And I did that when I had young children. I connect with myself. And because I begin that way, then because I'm full up, I'm able to give out so much more to other people. So women run on empty. We just do. And we have learned to be mean to ourselves. I'd say stop throughout the day. Discipline breaks where you ask yourself this question, as I do. Helen, what is the most loving thing I can do for you right now? I say that to myself, and then
And what are some of the things that you would, because for me it'd be
I would like
go to bed.
I would like a
You know,
really nice,
just
I'd
lock
like a
the
really nice
door,
cup of tea.
turn my emails off.
I would like, just to stop for a minute, I'd like to do this little bit of knitting that I'm doing. I want to read this book. Right now I need to move, and I need to move around a bit. I need to eat well. But I ask myself constantly, what are you needing? It's your play day today. What are you needing? I discovered that the way that I could fit time for myself in that made me full to give out to my children was that I got up before they were awake, which meant that so
I'd be up at 3 o'clock in the morning, Helen. I've got kids waking me like 4:30 going, can we play Lego? I'm like, yeah, right. Oh, hang on. We've got a friend joining us, Helen. Come here. This is what I found myself doing this morning. Just having a little bit of time with this guy. Just a little dog snuggle. But I think you're right. You know, I look back to Nick's got his headphones in, so I can say this. I look back to single life. Come on. And I was doing yoga, and I was learning the guitar, and bang, bang, bang. I know who I am.
Yeah.
And then there's so much guilt attached to actually doing that for ourselves now, of going, well, and in honesty, I think for many people a bit of martyrdom as well.
Or the story of I feel guilty. I think that the mother's mantra that I hear more than anything else is the sentence, I used to. So I used to. And I think, why aren't you doing that now? Well, I'm too busy. I have all these children. And I think, yes. However, we're talking about bite-sized chunks of paying attention. When you, in this disciplined way, say to yourself, you matter enough that I'm going to look after you first, then you parent from fullness. Everyone gets your own.
And is that not what kids want to see as well? Like, confidence to do what you want to do, confidence to be fit and healthy and connected to your own body. And I feel like that's something I've only really started to do in the last year, actually, is to say, Mummy's going to the gym now, and I'll see you in 45 minutes. Have you read Untamed yet, Helen, by Glennon Doyle?
Is it good? Should I read it, do you think? Yeah, I've glanced into it. Good.
Yes, it's excellent, because she's very unapologetic about her decisions in life. And that involves ending a marriage and starting a new relationship that perhaps was not accepted by her community and her followers and her readers. And a lot of what she talks about is, I don't want my kids to accept a second-rate relationship. I want them to see me striving for happiness and being the best person and parent that I can be by listening to myself. And I think it's a really valuable read, actually. A really valuable read. So
think about the truth behind it.
This is the homework.
Why do I have so many questions of how can I help my child have better friendships, feel kinder about themselves, perform better, have higher self-confidence? If we have a mother who acts like a doormat, who doesn't look after herself, who puts all her own needs first and constantly produces, I don't matter, except you must. So you have to go and dig for all the treasures that I buried and I wouldn't. That's not how you parent.
Yeah, it's true.
Yes.
Yeah. Hang on. A question saying which book, please. This, I don't know if it looks mirrored to me. It is called Untamed by Glennon Doyle. And I read it on Kindle. And then I went and bought an actual copy, which I've started, you can see, turning down pages and underlining and things. And I find myself underlining almost every page, which kind of defeats the purpose, to be completely honest. But there was a quote that I wrote in the front, actually, because the whole book made me think, which was, tell me, what is you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And I think it was a really interesting reminder of
live it.
Making choices for
live it, like real
for you as a person. We've very much veered off the parenting the pandemic topic, Helen, and we're running out of time, unfortunately. But I just wanted to quickly come back to anxiety, really, which is something I think an awful lot of people are either suffering from the first time right now, And that can be health anxiety, it can be job, financial, security anxiety, or perhaps someone who's been anxious and this has just been exacerbating things. Can you give us a little, any mindfulness exercises on dealing with anxiety in the moment?
I just love it. Think anything that you can do to soothe yourself, you teach to the children, because it's actually the other way around. Think we know how to soothe the child when they're upset. We pick them up because they're crying, we hold them up against us, we pat them, and we say, oh, now, come on now, hey, right? So I love the whole notion of dropping out of my head, down into my body, tapping myself on my chest to remind myself, taking nice big deep breaths. I taught this the last big session we had as a group before the lockdown. There were more than 30 people sitting together, and I said, we're going to do several different types of meditation practice for anxiety. And the first one, if you master it, you do it with the children. It's so simple. Whilst tapping gently on your chest to remind yourself to be in your body, you take a really deep breath in, and with your eyes closed and fully concentrating, you just go shh, 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 shh. When you're finished with that, take another breath and do shh, 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 shh. Tell the children it's like making train noises, but you're actually going hush, 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 hush. It's easier to go shh. And when you sit really still with one hand on your belly and the other hand tapping your chest, sitting beside a child who's struggling to sleep, teaching them just shh, just shh. That's the only noise you make. I love it. Followed by a lovely way of calming your anxiety when you settle into yourself and think about it. A lovely way of calming is just to hum. Teach the children. Nice big, they do big deep breath in, keep your mouth
and
closed,
kids love
and
doing
just
that.
go on one tone without altering it. The children love it, your body loves it, and it's soothing. It's just soothing.
Oh, and that's what we need right now, a bit of soothing and a bit of Helen Williams. My phone's going to collapse. Helen, I'm going to let you get back to your very busy life, and that might be meditating, which is absolutely valuable in itself, but I cannot thank you enough for your time this evening. You are incredibly in demand right now, and as you say, probably more now than ever before, which is good. I know it is. It's incredibly positive that people are recognizing and have the confidence to recognize in themselves that they need to reach out, or they want to preempt something, or it is, and then it's a positive thing to say that you need help. You know, I feel like there's a real maturity there in saying I don't have the answers, or I don't know, and I'm going to look outside myself to someone wiser, such as Helen Williams, to be there. And often you're not there with answers. Often you're there with questions, and that's what always surprises me whenever I come to see you. I might have something in mind to talk about, and we'll end up going in some bizarre tangent. But it's all about coming back to what's really going on. So thank you so much, Helen. What's the best way of getting in touch with you?
The best way to get in
and your
touch
team
with me
at
is to get in
Mindful
touch
Me.
with Alfie. So you have to get through Alfie to get to me. And so Alfie is to be reached
Alfie's the
on
man.
Email info@mindfulme.me. Lovely.
Okay, perfect. And you're on Instagram as well. The team is there if you're not available.
Yes.
Kirsty just put the email up there. Thank you, Kirsty. You're a gem. And thank you for your time. I really, really enjoyed it. And judging by the number of messages we've had today and this evening. And I just want to say a big thank you to Signa as well. You can get some free mental health checks if that's something you need to do, and have a bit of a moment to yourself, which I will always encourage. So good night.
Love you.
I'm going to go make some dinner and speak to my husband.
Bye.
All right, lots of love. Who's ready to go to school?
Me!
Who